Welcome to the Curated Beauty Podcast. Jessica Christie here, a health and beauty enthusiast who became a medical practitioner to be the authority on how to enhance both your outer beauty and inner beauty for the most confident glow. Founding and owning a multi-million-dollar aesthetic medical practice in Michigan, my mission is to bring all the bi-coastal innovations to the fresh coast of Michigan. From which aesthetic treatment gives you the most bang for your buck to how to create systems to be both professionally fulfilled and still have freedom of time and relationships, we will be diving into it all. Welcome to the Curated Beauty Podcast. I am Jessica Christie, your host, and this week I'm super excited because I get to welcome an amazing guest that is a new friend of mine. Her name is Miss Katie Martin. She's a fellow physician assistant alongside me, but she's all the way across the country in California, and she is the vice president of clinical operations and a very, very advanced injector and gain trainer at Holden Timeless Beauty. Katie and I first met each other at an Elastin summit. Elastin is part of Galderma. It's a skincare line. And if you follow me on Instagram, you definitely probably already know that. But we were sharing some best tips and tricks and little pearls of wisdom from the skincare side of our business. And Katie and I got to chatting and got to know each other as much as you can in a 36-hour time period. And we just decided, wow, how great would it be to talk a little bit more about the whole concept of true community and true collaboration over competition. So I want to welcome Katie to our podcast. Thank you for being here today.
Jessica, I'm so excited and thank you for having me.
I am really excited to dive into this topic with you. I think it's interesting, when we were in California at the Elastin Summit, it's easy for us maybe potentially to be able to talk about, oh yes, community over competition, but how true that really rings when it's in your own backyard. And I think it would be really cool to maybe even touch on how your history of how you got into aesthetics and what your path was to speak about the whole true community over competition for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, I just want to say I was so excited to meet you at the Elastin Summit. You are just so full of business wisdom, and I love the mindset stuff. And I knew we just clicked when we first met each other. So just excited that we get to do this together.
Oh, me too.
But yes, so I have been a PA for almost 13 years now. My first 5 were in the emergency department. And I always say that I loved it till I hated it. And then I hated it and I wanted a change. I found myself working with a plastic surgeon here in San Diego, and I just fell in love with aesthetics. It is somewhere where I always say my clients are happy and they're healthy and they want to see me. Mm-hmm. And it's a happy place for medicine. And fast forward, I ended up starting my own little clinic in Fallbrook, California. And Dr. Holden, who is my medical director now, was my medical director for my own little clinic. I did that for about 2 years. And Jessica, you know how difficult it can be to run your own business. You might be really good at your craft, but learning business too is definitely a challenge. I was lucky enough, though, to have Dr. Holden kind of on the same path as me. And so we kind of got to learn together in a lot of different ways. Fast forward, and in 2020, she came to me and essentially after an 8-hour meeting said, "What do you think?" And she had offered to essentially merge. And I said, okay, so what you're offering me is everything I'm good at, everything I like doing without all the extra stuff. Mm-hmm. And she goes, yep. And I said, all right, let's do it. So going since 2020, from director of operations to now VP of clinical operations. And I even just in our own little clinic, the collaboration aspect of things, I always say she's the visionary, I'm the integrator. So she sees things from A to Z, and I need the A, B, C, D, E, step by step. How are we going to get us there? So we work really well together to have that collaboration, even in our own office.
I love that. I think that there's so many pearls that stand out to me from what you just said, even. I think first of all, everyone starts business and medical aesthetics thinking like, okay, I'm really good at this craft. And so I'm going to go do it on my own. And then as you get into that, you're like, yes, I can do it on my own. Yes, I can grow. Yes, I can make money. But now you're wearing all these other hats. And at some point, as you run around and you're spinning all the plates, like which plates get spun? And so you become this very stressed out individual, and you can do it, but you need to put those systems in place. I think that no one pulls us aside and says, this is how you master business in medicine. And I think that it's really unique that you guys both had that emotional intelligence to think, wow, we could both focus on what we're good at and do it together and do it better. And, it kind of brings it into what I think makes the best injectors in this arena, which are the people who are really focused on the power of specialization and the power on capitalizing, I always say, like on unique abilities or unique strengths. And I look at some of the best injectors in our circle and in our community all over the country, and they're not trying to do everything. They're really, really trying to deliver that exceptional, high caliber product or service, but they focus. And, I really think that when you are asked to submit, like I know you've submitted and spoken on panels and you talk a lot about business and mindset. And I think that when you really focus, you're able to then have that thing where, oh, I think I want someone to speak on business and mindset. I'm going to call Katie Martin. And vice versa, clinically as well. Like I think about Erica Berry. She is over in Washington, D.C. area, and she really focuses on neuromodulators, and she's so good at them, and 8-point lift. And she always talks about how if there's someone that needs lip filler, she refers them down the hallway. And Katie, when you and I were chatting, I know that you were sharing a little bit about how your practice looks like that too, because I know you're not injecting 5 days a week either, because you're focusing on your unique craft and abilities in gearing all of the operations around the office. But what does that look like for you in your office?
Yeah, so absolutely right. So I always say that I never get bored when I'm at work because I get to do so many different and fun things. So probably 3 days a week is injecting. And I don't think I could ever give that up. I mean, you make these relationships with patients and I would never want to give that up. Mm-hmm. I also think doing the day-to-day injecting also makes me a better trainer clinically, because I can truly say, oh yeah, I saw that last week. Oh yeah, I saw that last year. And this is how I handled it. And this is what happened. But on the flip side, I also do a lot of the operational stuff. So I handle all the trainings. I don't always physically train everybody, but I'm the one coordinating all the trainings for not only our office, but also the external trainings that come in, like from Galderma or Allergan or whoever it is. I work very closely with our regional manager, making sure everybody has what they need, making sure schedules make sense, kind of the logistics that aren't easy, for example, someone like a visionary to handle. I like all of those details.
Yeah.
But clinically, I was telling Jessica, there are some areas that I never want to inject. I like sleeping at night. And if I never inject a nose in my whole life, I'm okay with that. And I'm going to listen to this podcast probably 3 years from now, injecting noses, and be like, you said that. But there is one injector in our practice who does noses, and she gets referred all of them because out of our 13 injectors that we have now, only one is doing it. But she's mastered that craft and she knows the anatomy and she knows it. And so we all trust her to do it. Mm-hmm. So, and I agree. I think it's finding what you love and what you're good at and not trying to be great at everything.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, also pushing yourself a little bit and not being scared to try new things under guided over.
Yeah. And the proper training too. Like, you and I have talked about too, like I train for Allergan aesthetics and you're training for Galderma aesthetics. And even though we train for different companies that are actually way more in competition with each other than I feel like the trainers are, which is so funny. Like I know that you've talked about that too. Like at the end of the day, our job is to help people not only find their niche and what they're good at and what they like, but also guide them with those exact feelings. When you were a new injector, didn't you feel like I did used to do noses when I was a newer injector because I had no idea how dangerous they were. And then the more you learn, the more you're like, oh my gosh. And for anyone listening and who's like, why wouldn't you inject the nose? You inject every other area of the face. The backflow of these arteries can lead into the arteries that feed our eye. And it's the number one, that in the forehead are the number one areas where if you had an adverse event of a vascular event, you could cause blindness, which could be permanent. And that to us, like that's why she's saying she would rather sleep at night. I agree with you. I used to do them and I no longer do. And no one in our office does that. I was like, go get either a plastic surgeon that really knows this anatomy well, does noses all day, every day, or like go get a surgical rhinoplasty.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I know. If only I knew then what I know now. I agree. One of my first filler models was a glabella filler. Yeah, yes. Another high risk area. Same. But I didn't know any better back then, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I absolutely agree.
Like, thank God, I think the aesthetic lords were watching over us because I used to do the same. And also like talking about how nasolabial folds, which are the folds like running down the side, between the cheek and the lips, like those folds were, until recently the number one area that was injected. And, we have a very important artery. Like I just really laugh at now, like how much I could have gotten into, but thankfully I was kept safe. But I think I think that it brings it back to those people that are trying to be this little lone island office and are, I think that there's a lot of reasons why people probably are in such competition with others instead of that collaborative mindset. There's so much scarcity around it. But I definitely want to talk about the psyche of that in a bit. But I really think about if you are a jack of all trade because you don't want to refer to someone, if maybe you only work by yourself because you don't like a team, or maybe you don't want to refer out because you're afraid they won't come back. Whatever it may be, if you're trying to do it all, how can you really be a master of all that plus run your business? Mm-hmm. And so I think, I don't know, how do you deal with that with your other injectors and your training? And how do you help people kind of find and cultivate that brand and identity of the injector?
I think it's really honing in on what you love doing, because at the end of the day, we spend so much time at work. We want to be doing something we love. And if there's something that makes you feel uncomfortable or an area that you just don't want to inject, then, obviously it's a little different referring within the office, right? Mm-hmm. But I think as an injector and as a non-surgical person, and we don't have any surgery, no surgeons in our office.
Yeah.
I think we are also doing our clients a disservice if surgery is on the table for them, but they just don't know that they're a candidate for it. I would rather refer them to a plastic surgeon friend or an oculoplastics for blepharoplasty than try to band-aid a situation when I know they would get better results and they're willing to do surgery. So I think that's also part of that collaboration aspect of things, is to also know our limits and be okay with that.
Yeah.
But then, we should also speak to, yes, you're going to get your facelift, but we also need to talk about getting your skin healthy for that facelift. So it's not like I don't ever think of it as scarcity. I think of it as, at the end of the day, we took an oath to do no harm. But my patient is my priority. And if I can get them a better result, even if it's not in my hands, that is where I'm going to send them.
Yes. So it's very interesting because that is absolutely the whole, what you just said in a nutshell is you have a mindset of abundance over scarcity. And I remember one of our newer employees, I had a one-on-one meeting with her where I got to just see her insights of the practice. And it's sometimes so interesting to see what they say. And they teach me so much in an insight, especially a new employee, right? And she said, it's so funny that you have a training spa down here. And that it just really made me think about abundance mindset over scarcity. Like, why would you want to train someone in Michigan that does what you do that could potentially take patients away from you. And that's exactly it. I think we talk in our field about so much that one bad outcome is so bad for all of us. Mm-hmm. And one, it's like if the more people know that if I get Botox, I'm going to look more rested, my skin will look better, I can achieve these little brow lifts or whatever their outcome is, and that expectation is set with their provider. I think that it's really interesting because so many people would take those fears that keep them from doing it out of the picture and actually just go get what they really want done.
Absolutely.
And so then it makes me think about if that's the case and they're really honing in on that portion of it, how many more providers are we actually going to need? And people that are wanting to get something done, but their fear is now gone, how many people are going to take that step to do it? So it's like really on us as a responsibility to train our young really well.
I could not agree with you more on that. So I shared with you the story of when I was being vetted to be a Galderma trainer, the question did come up, why would you want to train competition down the street? And I said, honestly, if I can make an injector a little bit more safe and get a little bit of a more natural result, then I'm doing my job for the entire industry. Mm-hmm. And I agree. I always joke about Aunt Sally, who looks different every Thanksgiving that nobody wants to look like, right? And so if we can just get to that point, and I think aesthetics is truly swinging that way back towards natural and subtle and looks more rested rather than overdone and all of those stigmas that come with aesthetics. This industry has only touched a small fraction of the people who want to be in here and who don't know that they can have all of those wonderful results. Yeah. So as trainers, you and I have that power and that platform to truly help the next generation of injectors be just a little bit more natural, a little bit more safe.
And what a gift. And then also to be able to welcome them in. I don't know about you, but like I know you were in ER. I was in surgery as a brand new PA, and they were just not nice to me. And I just think, what if these veteran team members could welcome you in with open arms? Anybody knows, like, look at a child in an educational system. You're going to learn so much more when you feel like your opinions are welcomed and you're safe and you're able to learn. And you're going to ask those questions, and then you're going to bring the innovations to the table. So I just really think about, that whole abundant potential of the collaborative growth as a whole and encouraging that warmth and camaraderie within our industry. I definitely align, and I find myself attracting to people like you. Like now I feel like we're joined and lifelong friends, and a lot of my friends are all over the country. And luckily, lucky for Instagram, we get to stay in touch. But I love how, you and I were talking about the whole thing. Like there's enough room in the sandbox for everyone to be able to play. And that is such a true thing because it really shows that youth portion of it too.
Absolutely.
And we are just those veterans that are welcoming in the little new rookies.
And on the flip side, I think it's truly important, even as veterans, to not be so scared and not so ashamed of any bad outcomes too.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Talk about that, girl.
And that's one thing that I love about, and one of my talks in the circuit is culture. And especially inside of our practice, there's very little competition between injectors. It's more of a, hey, can you look at this? What would you do here? Or what do you think is going on here? Well, how would you treat this? Or, oh, she's coming in because she has a lump. What would you do? And the more that we're open with those either adverse reactions, but learning from each other in that aspect too, I think is just going to elevate us all so that we have a better understanding of how other people handle those things and not to be so ashamed of having a bad outcome I shouldn't even say a bad outcome, right? That's all mindset, a less than ideal for your client outcome. Yeah. But I think that's part of it.
I always say it's not a crime to have a less than desirable outcome or even a side effect or even an adverse event. but it is a crime to not handle it appropriately. And I think that putting that shame aside really allows us to seek out those experts that we know how to handle it. And then we learn. So I look at any time we've all had them. We've all reversed, and we've used hyaluronidase, which is an enzyme to reverse HA filler. We've all done that to our own work. I really think we're such pioneers in this industry that look at how we used to fill even the tear trough area under the eye. That is so different from how we fill it now. And the support system around it. And we've learned so much. There's no shame in going back and starting over. And I totally agree with you. I think that there's a really massive shadow over the community that houses shame. Gosh, there could be a whole podcast on shame and like being vulnerable and saying like, gosh, I need your help in this. It doesn't mean that you don't know your own craft. You're just asking someone who's been through something before because it's such a new field. It's wild. I think also there's a personality type maybe that I've started to pick up on that maybe is drawn to this field. We have this profound yearning for not only perfection, but also like the external validation and acceptance of each other. But then also we're trying to grasp at all the patients. I think, do you see that too with the social media game in terms of our industry?
Absolutely. I think social media is in our industry, it's kind of a necessary evil at some points. Mm-hmm. But I bet you can agree that yes, there is collaboration and people sharing their techniques, but sometimes that competition aspect of things and feeling like you're not enough or feeling you're not doing enough can also creep into. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of psyche stuff and mindset stuff that goes into social media. Mm-hmm. I think it's definitely a great place for patients to find us and feel connected to us before they ever walk in our doors. And for us to establish ourselves as an authority in the space. But sometimes I know I have to catch myself and not really compare myself to somebody who might look like the big people on Instagram, right? Yeah. So there's definitely a dichotomy here.
I couldn't agree more. I think also look at it this way. Our anatomy has not changed. I was actually just reading a book how Michelangelo, to make Hercules and the David and like all these, he actually would go into the morgue and find people that no one would miss that died and dissect them so that he could learn anatomy. Since then, really, anatomy has not changed. We have physics as well, like gravity, volume replacement. We have products that are beautifully engineered that are coming out all the time. But I find it so interesting how so many providers can try to like slap a label like this is my technique, this is my hashtag, this is my wording. And it starts to become this very like grabby, handsy industry too. And although I really believe in proprietary techniques and being able to train on something that's worked really well and being an expert in your own industry and in your own facet of what you're doing in your niche, I think that we really have to be careful about getting so far away from holistically treating the patient. Because like you said, it is in the end of the day about a patient's outcome, what they're looking for, listening to them and taking out our ego and really putting back in the confidence that we all get from each other. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I know for you, like, I think we talked a little bit about the social media aspect also then being pushed onto our patients. So they are perceiving, oh my gosh, this person has so many followers on Instagram, which a lot of times we all know, like some of them were bought. And then I think that, and that just happened, like that was a thing back then. I think some people that are really, really good injectors have probably purchased Instagram followers. But I think that also then our patient perception, we have to be careful because they can think, oh, this person must be the best because so many people follow them. And also talking poorly about other injectors. How do you handle when a patient shows up and maybe potentially talks poorly about another injector in your chair?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I will never speak bad. And I say this actually in Galderma trainings too. I'll never speak bad about other products, and I will never speak bad about another injector. Mm-hmm. So how I handle that is, let's take migrated lip filler, for example, right? So I'll say, you know what? Imagine all of that muscle movement that's happening. This can happen to any kind of filler, to any injector. Now, what we do from here is, and I give them the options, but I also bring it back to, I will never say that they did something wrong because I don't know how they did it. And I'll never say they used the wrong product because I don't know exactly what they were seeing at that time. So I try to just make it about, take it off of the injector that did it. And I, again, will never, and I honestly, sometimes most of the time don't want to know who it was or where they went. Yeah. And I just say, but here's how we're going to go forward with this.
Yeah.
So I hope my colleagues in the area, if that ever happens to them, does the same thing for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that it's important how you market your message to your patient. So if you are wanting to bring in a certain clientele, like someone who also has that same mindset, it's likely that you're going to tell them what you're all about so that they can see themselves in your practice and come on in. I think that it's really such a disservice to practices that their only marketing ploy is how everyone else is horrible and they're the best and they're the only choice, because you're attracting that negative energy as well. And so, like, they're shooting themselves in the foot, but I really think, like, as we have a duty again, like, there's people that old dogs not going to learn new tricks, but those newbies, I think that welcoming them in and giving them a seat at the table and teaching them, okay, what is your ideal patient? Like, who do you want to market to? What message are you putting out there? So, like, for me, I want someone who is educated on the expectation of the procedure. So a lot of my Instagram content is geared towards education and why what I am offering them will meet their needs. And then they can pick that up or put it down, but I'm very clear about what I offer. And so I think that you're very similar in that way as well. And you lead your practice in the same way too, which is great.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. At the end of the day, right, like attracts like energy wise. If you put out that negative energy, guess what kind of clients are going to come through your door, right? Yeah. But if you put out that positive message of like, hey, this is me, this is what I do, this is how I educate, and this is what I believe in. And I mean, that is going to get you your ideal client because they're going to hear that message. And like I said, I think social media is definitely a necessity in our world, but letting your patient, your client know you before they ever step foot in your door also allows you to then attract just the people that you want to attract.
Yes. Right? Yes. So, and like you said, when you show up for work every day, you don't want to be bored and you don't want to see a whole bunch of people on your schedule that you don't want to see. So if you're more clear about who you want to see, they're going to come in. And I welcome people all the time. Like if what I say on Instagram bothers you, you can so easily click the unfollow button. I will not be hurt, because that's also the beauty of having all these injectors. You're going to find your tribe and your vibe, and we can really be able to foster that true community where we can be kind, but we can also be able to, with informed choice of who we're aligning with, pick up what's right for us and really be ethical about the way that we conduct ourselves in this incredibly personal but professional environment and hold that integrity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I am so grateful for your time and these little pearls. I hope that we get to spread a little bit of wisdom to people who are maybe new to the industry and thinking, oh, this is tough, knowing that there are people like us out there that want to align with you and want to welcome you into it and teach you the right way to not only tactically do skills, but also how to find your place in this really, really crazy, fast growing space and really be able to transform your life and the life of all of the patients that we get to be able to meet and see. And I think that we're in a really cool field. It's not just a Botox field. It's a field of it's definitely a field of medicine, and we're making big waves and big changes in people's lives when they need it most.
Yeah, it's all about creating self-esteem and creating confidence from the inside out. And it's not the fluff specialty that I think some people like to chalk it up as.
Yes. Well, is there anything on the horizon for Holden Timeless Beauty that is going to be new and innovative, or any big projects that you guys are working on?
Oh, that's a good question that I can't tell you right now, but a lot of fun stuff is happening. Yes,
that's
girl.
so good. Okay, so if any listeners wanted to find you so that they can follow along, where would they find you and your Instagram page?
Yeah, so I'm at katie.the.injector, same name on TikTok, and I'm on LinkedIn as Katie Martin.
I love that. And last question that I love to ask people, and you don't have to answer if you aren't sure yet, but I love to ask people if you read what, because I know you're a reader, if you read one book that kind of like changed your entrepreneurial or Injector or life in general, what's like the book that comes to mind?
Oh my goodness. I think recently it was Rocket Fuel. Have you ever? I think I might have told you about actually at dinner.
Wait.
To that.
I think I wrote it down somewhere.
I think you did. I think it's in your planner.
Oh my gosh, one of my journals. Yeah.
So the Rocket Fuel is the one that put the name on the visionary integrator relationship.
Yes.
You at dinner
yes, because I was telling you. Yes, I was telling you that I need to find you in my life. Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm ordering Rocket Fuel right now.
So, and it actually goes through steps on how to like find your visionary if you're an integrator, and how to find your integrator and vice versa. So currently that has been, because I think once you have that relationship, which I do have with Dr. Holden, it's also how to communicate to each other, because she can sometimes stress me out with big picture plans. I can stress her out with tiny little details. So I think that book has helped us figure out how to also communicate a little better.
That's awesome. I love that. You guys are like constantly growing and changing. And wow, you guys have nailed it even in your own practice, the whole community concept, and you keep working on it, because obviously it's not easy. You don't just find it and then boom, your life is easy. So I think that you guys are a gleaming example of really doing it the right way. And I'm just really grateful that I have you in my corner and in my community.
Yes, we're lifelong friends now. And whenever you're in San Diego, you should plan a trip out here with the kids.
I'm going to, because there's nothing prettier than San Diego.
There's great weather out here.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to be respectful of your time. I know you have to hop up and do a lot of crazy things in the rest of your day, but I give you a warm thank you. And I thank you for our whole community, because those are really great pearls. And I look forward to when I get to take a visit out there.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jessica.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Congratulations, you have done it. You've reached the end of an episode on the Curated Beauty Podcast and have enriched a part of your self-care by discovering something new. I hope this time together added a little perspective to your day and will ultimately boost your confidence and give you the strength to do all the hard things. As we walk through this journey together, follow our Curated Beauty Podcast. And if this resonated with you, share it with a friend, save the episode, and also follow our social media platforms in the show notes. We love to engage with our listeners on all levels.